Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. Visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today we're going to go over belts, okay? So, knives are cool, right? Okay, but a knife is just part of it, right? I mean, if you just got some makers out there actually sell knives just as knives, like that's it, that's all you get, just a knife, right? But that's kind of silly because, I mean, for a knife to be useful, it needs to be like with you, right? So if you were to just, if you just had the knife and you just walked around carrying a knife, you'd probably get arrested pretty soon, right? I mean, if you just had the knife and no sheath. Because you can't stick that in your pocket, it'll cut its way out. So you you make yourself a sheath. Now all of a sudden, the sheath is great. The knife is protected from the world and the world is protected from the knife. Everything's handy, right? Now you could stick this in your pocket if you wanted to, throw it in a backpack, anything like that. You can walk around carrying your knife and you won't get arrested, you know, because you're not carrying a bare blade all the time. The only problem is so that's a nice package, but there's one more piece to the package that really makes a big difference in whether a knife is comfortable to carry around and whether it's going to be handy to use. Because if it's not comfortable to carry, you're not going to carry it, right? I mean, if it's uncomfortable to carry, or if it hurts, or if it pokes you in different places, then you're going to leave it at home and it's not going to be with you when you need to use the thing, right? So most of us, well, I don't know about most of us, but you know, I do. You know, I wear jeans and a t-shirt every single day. Very rarely will you find me not in jeans and a t-shirt. And you know, I wear a belt to keep my pants up and to be able to carry my knife. Your belt and the way your belt, or the way your sheath fits your belt is huge when it comes to comfort and carrying a knife all day, every day. We can take an awful lot of lessons here with from the concealed carry crowd and from law enforcement, like cops, sheriff's deputies, and especially, you might not think about this, but game wardens. Now, I'm not saying you need you know, a duty belt, like a full 2-inch wide duty belt, like what cops and sheriffs and you know, highway patrol, what those guys carry. Those poor dudes, you know, I mean, they've got them thick old 2-inch wide leather belts, and they probably must be packing around 20 pounds worth of stuff around their belt, or around their waist. By the time you add, you know, a full-size firearm with a couple extra magazines and a flashlight and a radio, well, maybe they don't carry radios. They probably carry radios still, and pepper spray and a stun gun, and you know, all that stuff that and cuffs and all that stuff that they've got to carry every day. They've probably got 20 pounds worth of stuff around their waist. We don't need to go quite that far. That's where the game and fish guys are at. Around here, you know, we've got plenty of game and fish guys, and they're mostly really, really cool people. Most of the time, you know, after they find out that you've got your, you know, after they check your licenses and everything, make sure you're all legal, you know, those guys, you can say, hey, who's catching the most fish? Where on the lake are they catching them? And what are they using them with? Because those guys have visited every single person around, and they've checked the fish, you know, that they've caught to make sure that they've got the right number and that they're legal and all that kind of stuff. Those guys, typically the ones that I see, they're carrying much more like concealed carry type setups, okay? A nice 1.5-inch wide leather belt, a mid-sized or a full-sized service pistol, you know, with 1 or 2 extra magazines, maybe some cuffs, and I think that's about it for most of the guys that I see them, you know, see what they're wearing on their waist. Now, if you ever see one of those guys, don't stare and be, you know, awkward and everything, but, you know, kind of pay attention to the belt setup that they're wearing, the holster setup, and how all that moves with them, okay? Most of those guys that they're wearing leather belts, leather holsters, and when they move, that holster and that gun becomes part of them, okay? They move and that gun is moving right with them. Now, on the other side of that, if you ever go to Walmart, Um, and you see the guy walking around with a Beretta 92 in a cheap Uncle Mike's holster on a, you know, boy, the flies are bad today. A Beretta 92, which is full-size 9mm or 40, you know, in a cheap Uncle Mike's holster on an 1.25" dress belt. The dang holster is flopping around, and you're kind of wondering how on earth the gun is staying inside the holster. Because when the guy turns real quick, it's almost like the holster stays here, he turns, and then it catches up to him. The reason I'm going over all this is because the same thing happens with knives, just to a little bit lesser extent, okay? Because most, you know, pistols are gonna, you know, weigh 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, right? Most of your knives are not gonna weigh near that much, but the principle is the same. Your belt is the foundation that that knife and the sheath rides on, okay? If your belt is loose and floppy, if your belt loops don't fit the belt itself, all that just leads to just a whole bunch, just a not a very good experience, okay? So we're gonna go over a couple of belts here. This right here is a Carhartt. It's a single thickness of leather. Now it is a fairly thick piece of leather, probably about 10 ounces or so, and it's got a good buckle and everything, and it's 1.5 inches wide, but see how flexible that thing is? This kind of belt is good if all you're trying to do is hold your pants up, and maybe if you're carrying, you know, like a Gerber multiplier, or, you know, a really light necker and just one of them, something like that, right? I mean, these are just, now granted, this is also worn out. I probably wore this for 5 years or so. It seems like I go through belts about every 5 years. But this kind of belt, it's a good work belt and everything, but as far as carrying like any kind of real weight, a big knife or a pistol, this is just, it's not going to be all that great. In fact, let me grab one more knife. This is the second time I've shot this video. The first time, I really didn't like the way it turned out. So this is my hunting knife. Okay, it is 52-100. It's got a Mokame Gane guard and Cocobolo, I think, for the handle. You know, I mean, this is, like I said, I wear about an extra large leather work glove, so this is a pretty good size hunting knife, and this is what I carry. You know, for antelope, not really. Antelope, you really just use your pocket knife on them. For long mule deer hunts or elk hunts. But see how that belt just will not hold that knife up at all? That's what I'm talking about. If you were to go hunting with this belt and this knife, that knife, even though this fit is fairly good and it's fairly steady this way, the belt is just too flexible. That knife is going to feel like it's doing this all day long. And if you could do 5 or 10 miles that day, that's going to get really old in a hurry. This belt right here, this is not really a great representation of this belt, but this is a Don Hume leather gun belt, okay? It's 1.5 inches wide. It's got 2 thicknesses of layers, or 2 thicknesses of leather that have been stitched together. This is a top-of-the-line gun belt. Now this one right here, it has been beat up, okay? I wore this for, you know, 5+ years, and this was also with me when I gained all that weight. And so, you know, gaining weight really stresses a belt out, because by the time you notice that the belt is too tight, you know, you've probably already stressed the leather out quite a bit. So this one is a worn out, you know, leather gun belt. And worn out, see how much better that belt holds that knife? This right here, I think you can still get them. I think I got on Don Hume's website. And I think they were wanting 50 or 60 bucks for these belts. Really, really nice belt. You know, I would definitely buy another one. Now, I didn't find that website until after I'd bought a new one. This one, what I'm wearing right now, is a crossbreed. I got it off Amazon. This is a double layer. It's a little bit thicker than the Don Hume, and it's also apparently got a plastic liner in between the two pieces of leather to stiffen it up even more. Now I've only got about 2 or 3 months worth of wear on this belt, so basically just enough time to get, you know, the belt loop or the belt hole, you know, to get this kind of kink right here, to get it kind of set. You know, I just grab a leather punch and add a hole wherever I need it, you know, to get it to fit the way I want to. So anyhow, it's got its little initial stretch, and then it's got its kind of, you know, forming to my waist. You can see it's not completely straight anymore. But look at that. That same belt, that same knife, it's hardly sagging that knife sheath at all. Something like this is going to let you carry your knife so much more comfortably. When these belts are real nice and stiff like this, the stiffness is what holds the knife up, right? When you're carrying that type of knife on a real thin, flexible belt like this, the only way to make it feel like that knife isn't falling off your hip is to tighten the belt up more. This, you can put the belt where it feels comfortably, you know, around your waist, and then the belt itself does the work of holding up whatever weight's on there. A belt like this, you can hold, well, I mean, I'm not a cop, so I don't carry like a full-size service pistol, but I do carry a Glock 43X, I think, is my newest, you know, outdoors type pistol. You know, when we go camping or hiking or whatever. And you know, I just got the regular 10-round magazines for it, and it's a mid-size pistol. Got a 3.5-inch barrel, you know, something like that, and it rides real comfortably on this belt. So you know, I'll have the pistol on this side, and then whatever knife I'm carrying on this side, and an extra magazine. And you know, after an hour or two of carrying it, you hardly even realize it's there. You try to carry that same setup on a little bitty, you know, a flexible belt like this, it'll drive you bonkers. You'll be hitching your belt all the time. That's a good way to tell when your belt is wearing out. If you're constantly, you know, lifting your pants up, now if you get down on the floor and come back up, you know, you have to adjust your pants. But if you're just walking around, you know, not doing anything, not bending over a whole lot, not doing much anything, and you're still having to hitch your pants up all the time, your belt is probably getting near worn out. This one right here, like I said, it's a crossbreed. I got it off Amazon. It was about 70 bucks. So far I would totally buy this again. Like I said, I've only had it for a couple of months now. We'll see in about 5 years, you know, how it holds up. But anyway, if you're going to carry a knife on a belt, even, you know, light EDCs like this, get a good belt to hold that knife, because it just makes a world of difference in your comfort. And then match the width of your belt to the belt loops, okay? So almost all my sheaths are made to fit an 1.5 inch wide belt, unless somebody says differently. 1.5 inches is kind of the standard, I think. But if you have, if your belt loop is too tall, like if this was a 2-inch belt loop on a 1.5 inch belt, it'll be doing this all the time. Now this right here really isn't a whole lot. That's just enough to move with you. Like if you get into a car and the car's got kind of form-fitted seats, then that right there is just enough movement for it to kind of find a spot and kind of sit there and not jam into your hip. Much more than that, and then it starts to, you're never sure what angle that knife is going to be at when you reach for it, because it could be this way, it could be that way, you know, you never can tell. So again, if you're going to be carrying a knife on your hip, invest in a good, you know, a good leather belt. The concealed carry gun belts, I think, you know, they're made to carry weight. As long as it's a double thickness of leather and stitched, I think you'll have really good luck with it. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.